see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and we'll send this to you afterwards. And there's also a coaches page on the website where all the training ideas and everything is. So this orientation is supposed to will be done by 5:30 because we follow the Eve over plank rule of never taking advantage of people's time. So that's the aim. So here's what we're going to do today. The premise of this is, how do we develop high-performing board members? Very straightforward premise. We start with folks on committees, as opposed to popping them onto a board of an organization they don't know. And we hook them up with coaches so we can expedite their learning curve. So I think those are the two basic parts of how we develop high-performing board members. What we're going to do next is overview the model so you can see how the big pictures fit together. Then we'll go over the roles and duty of coaches, the logistical stuff. But then we'll have some real fun. We got a good TED Talk, and we'll talk about qualities of effective coaches and how and have a chat about developing board leadership in changing times. And then by the end of it, pretty much, we're going to tell you, in case you have to pop off early, we're working on hooking you up with coaches and nonprofits and candidates after the new year. So we are working now over the holidays to kind of come up with a big grid of the 25 individuals who want to serve on board someday and start on committees. We'll fly some names and organizations by you and then hook you up as a coach with the individual, and you get rolling after in mid-January or so is what we're hoping. So that's our wrap up in case you have to leave early. So here's the model. And we realize this is a pilot project. So every time we go through this, we come out with something and we keep modifying it. So we're process improvement folks. So our target markets overall are people who want to serve on boards, especially those who want to start at the committee level. So for the purpose of coaching, we're really looking at emerging committee and board prospects, emerging younger people in a lot of cases. A lot of the trainings and Zoom calls we're doing for roundtables are also for people who are already involved in board and committees. So for the trainings roundtables, we mix them together so they can learn from each other and network. But for you coaches, we're really talking about emerging board prospects by serving on the committee first in a lot of cases. So between our ambassadors putting forth talent that they think should be serving on board someday, plus Jameson's wonderful social media, we got 30 applicants within a few weeks. And Hugh wanted us to stop, and we said, no, this is a year-round evergreen process. We're just going to keep going. So when Hugh gets applications, the individuals apply online. They send a form in. Some of the nonprofits who want board members, they apply online. Plus, if they want diverse board members, they have to fill out a diversity survey too. So we got surveys, which we will share with you because that's part of the deal. When we find a candidate, Hugh and Stephanie get together and do a Zoom call or a meeting. Hugh's looking for things beyond what's on their application form, and Stephanie's keeping a side list of nonprofits she thinks they might be good fits for. And we're keeping all those notes. So we start our talent pool right in the beginning. The initial training is on our website. We taped you all at the Board Institute. Thank you very much. And so now we have some pretty darn good governance training modules on the website that we expect the candidates to read through, look through, view through. Plus we have our favorite board resources. And we're always looking for more favorite board resources to load. So if you find good board stuff, send it our way. So, and soon we'll develop those training modules into the kind that you can tell when the person does them and do some tests. We're working with our video company who has that talent within them that we didn't know about. But so first we just want to get training modules online for the candidates to look through at their leisure over a few weeks. So that's initial kind of boot camp training, I would call it. Self-directed.
And self-directed, I think what you said, but just want to emphasize that, it's on the applicants. They need to go get those resources.
We send them to them, we give them the links, and they need to take the time to go through them. But when stuff comes up, you'll get more familiar with what those resources are, and you'll be able to help see them and go back to them too. And then we talk about connecting. So We were thinking of connecting. In some cases, we'll do a little get together, maybe at the Lincoln Building or someplace around town with a few of the folks who are in the pool and the nonprofit, do some speed dating. A lot of them came to our board institute already. So they started to connect a little early, which is great. But at some point in January, we're hoping for a start, we'll connect the coaches to their candidates and the nonprofits. So that's what we're looking for to start to connect. But the connecting, some of the coaches are going to assist their candidates in making decisions about the nonprofits. Others will be very clear which nonprofits they want, and it's going to be coaching them because they're there. So the coaching will start to be different pretty quickly. The connecting is a step, and then it really is about the training and support. And again, a lot of this is very organic and ongoing. It's an open system and it's ongoing, so people can get the information they need when they find a reason that they need it. So on Mondays at noon, every other Monday at noon, we do a Zoom series of board workshops for free. And we've pre-picked topics, plus the candidates are giving us more topics. And then we do board roundtables on the alternate Monday. And right now, Connie's leading the roundtable with me. And if anybody else wants to help, let us know. But we had to get started and they've been pretty darn good. So we have ongoing every other week on Monday, free training at noon that people can Zoom into. Plus we do our board institute at least once a year, maybe more. Plus we'll send out stuff. So that's some ongoing training. But the real part, I think, is the coaching. And since it's so important, I decided to make it bigger. How's that? I couldn't fit it all in that little box. So right now, as we envision coaching, here's what we think we expect from coaches. And again, it's an iterative organic process, but we want the coaches to initiate contact with their candidates once a month. We don't want to sit around and wait for the candidates to get you. We want you to reach out to them. And you get up to 3 tries, and if they don't respond to you, well, then, you know, we've so noted. But yeah, 3 texts or emails, whatever. And so we figure, and maybe you'll end up just setting a regular meeting time up with your candidate or whatever. So somehow. So what are our coaches doing? Well, first of all, you're just monitoring what's going on. You're actually coaching and mentoring and help problem solving. You're trying to figure out what that individual needs, and are there things that organizational nonprofit needs. So what's going on with the individual in that setting? You're going to try to hook them up with our workshops, our roundtables, our resources. If they really get in and they find that there's a lot of stuff going on and the organization needs some board consulting, well, then you can feed that information back, because we have a modest capacity building pool and some good consultants, and some time they're going to need that. We also know that as you meet with your candidates, they're going to come up with topics for our programs, for our roundtables and our workshops, and you should feed those back to us. And they're also going to come up with ways for us to make the board Get On Board program better. So we're looking for process improvement ideas and content. And we don't care how you meet with your candidate, it's whatever works for you. So Zoom, phone, in-person, email, carrier pigeon, whatever, you know, Scotch drive-bys, whatever. Now, each month when you've made contact, we'll have a status report form. Type it up on your email and send it to Hugh, or give Hugh a call if you don't like typing, because I like to see Hugh try to type. So yeah, there's a form that we'll develop.
And I'm a good note taker too. So if you just want to give me a call, if that'll save time, that's fine. Absolutely fine.
Because he'll have to write it on the form, because that'll help us pattern things. And again, it'll help us see trends, and it'll just keep us going for monitoring. And again, we urge you, as well as the candidates, to Zoom in on those alternate Mondays at noon for a 1-hour roundtable or workshops, because the more we know, the more. And we figure maybe a couple of times a year we'll Zoom or in person with the other coaches, because you're probably going to find out some pretty interesting stuff and want to get to know each other better too. So I think that's what we expect of the volunteer coaches. And if there's other things that you think of, tell us. If there's other things that come up, let us know. So as far as the, you know what, let me tell you, I'll do the boring stuff and then we'll go back to the fun stuff. So let's go back to, okay, so the forms that we're going to have online, the logistics stuff, we're going to ask you to sign a confidentiality agreement and the candidate, because you need to be able to make sure that what happens and stays there. And truthfully, Stephanie is our grants person. She can't know any of the dirty laundry for the nonprofits. There's a firewall because we have to have that firewall on the grant making side. So she's going to recommend nonprofits and then she's going to step back. Hugh has nothing to do with grant making. I have nothing to do with grant making. So we can help to fix and develop the program. Well, now we'll have a coaching report form with these kinds of questions on there for you to fill in whatever makes sense. And the stuff you'll get, we'll run the names by you before we formally match you to see if you're got conflicts or you're interested. But we have their application form. We'll share their interview notes. They've all sent bios or LinkedIn forms. We have had the candidates fill out a goal and aims form for why they want to do community service as a volunteer and on a board. So we know, is it personal, professional? I mean, so why do they want to serve on the board? And then again, we'll help suggest nonprofits, and Stephanie will open the door to contact the nonprofits. And then you're going to help the candidate figure out which nonprofit's right for them. And they probably will want to do some searching on the website and maybe a site visit and take a look at the GuideStar stuff and the 990. And we'll even do sessions on looking at the 990s as part of the roundtables or the workshops we can do. So those are the forms that each coach will have. And if there's other forms or things we've forgotten about, just tell us because we need to know. So we're not done yet because that was the logistical part. When we look at coaching, so I just Googled characteristics of effective coaches. And I was kind of wondering, you know, what when you think of coaches and mentors you've had, are there any of these things you would put as secondary, or I mean, what's most important to you? And I mean, you kind of want to like make sure that these things are all you as well, which I think they are, otherwise we wouldn't have invited you here. But are there things that are more important to you as a coach? Those things on the list, because that's what Google says are characteristics of effective coaches and mentors. What's
Karen,
most
I think active listening is really important and will be really important here. I see it as number one. I'm glad it's number one on the list, because without active listening, it's really hard to connect to the people that we're going to be working with, and really understanding what it is that they're asking of us and how we can best help them.
So how do you be an active listener?
The way I do it is, as I'm listening, I hear I scowl too, but that's just because I'm listening. I just focus right in on the person who's talking, and to let them know that I'm hearing what they're saying, I will make gestures now and again, not to interrupt, but just to let them know that I'm listening. And when there is a break in the conversation, if I have something to say, I will say it then and encourage conversation, feedback, that kind of thing. So you get a dialogue going. It isn't just one person talking and the other person listening. That's how I do it.
Okay. Anybody want to add to that? And I see Lou Titai has joined us. Thank you very much, Lou, looking very thoughtful.
I'm sorry, Karen, I was late on the call. I apologize. I had another call.
Not to worry, Lou. I'm glad you're here.
Thanks.
So anything else about effective coaches? Active listening, really making some of the body language, making eye contact, leaning forward, looking for points you can go in, but not interrupting with your own points before they're done with theirs.
Yeah, and I think another thing too is to not make judgments, to listen and make constructive suggestions or alternate ways of approaching, but try not to be too judgy and to, oh, that's a terrible idea, you shouldn't do that. You know,
I like a range of options. What are the options that might fit in this situation? Because you only have one side of the story, and that's what the candidate is telling you.
Right.
So,
you need to probe. You need to gently probe and ask questions to suss out what the information is. If there's a problem, what is it that they think is the problem? Well, what is it on the other side, do they think that's also a problem? Just try to pull out as much information and maybe represent it to them in a way that gives them another advantage point, another viewpoint, another perspective on how it could be solved.
Other characteristics of effective coaches that jump out at you that you want to flesh out a little bit? And is there anything that's missing from the list, or there's things that you think are less important?
I jump in and say that I think trustworthy is really important, because I think you need to develop a rapport with the person you're mentoring so that they feel they can trust you with whatever's going on. So they're not embarrassed to be honest, because I think the mentor-mentee, that relationship is based on honesty of both parts. And I see they also have here, honesty tells it like it is. That's from the side of the coach. But in order to make it work, the person you're coaching needs to trust you enough to be honest. And sometimes I think what I see with board members or committee members is because they're successful in their careers, they're very reluctant sometimes to say, I don't know what to do, or
Right.
I don't know what's going on, or I didn't understand this, and they're reluctant to ask the question. So making someone feel comfortable and that what is said here stays here and all of that kind of thing, I think that's really important.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a
those
really
are-
good point. Yeah.
What else,
You
Eric?
did, those are key points, and to build on them a little bit more, I think where that really goes is showing or exposing vulnerability. You know, meaning if you've had some struggles in the past, I know personally I can learn a lot from mistakes than successes. So you know, those, when bad things happen, it's nice to be able to talk about that, and you can only do that if it's an honest, trusting, safe type environment. And then going along with that as well as, you know, after you establish that rapport, I think an effective coach needs to be able to show empathy, because that helps to continue their relationship, you know, as it goes forward, and helps to just, you know, continue that line of communication in a very positive, pragmatic way.
Yep. Any other comments?
Real quickly on the active listening part.
Yeah, Bob.
One of the things that I found over the years is that if you restate what you've heard from the candidate with regards to what their issue is, what their problem is, or even their opinion, when you restate it, they understand better what you heard. And sometimes when they hear it restated, and particularly when you're doing it accurately, they change their position, because now they've heard it, and not necessarily change their position, but they qualify it in such a way that you have a much better understanding of what they're really trying to say.
So the restating is really important. Thank you. Okay. We got some good coaching. This is good. So let's go on, cognizant of time. You all know that we have some overall board responsibilities, and each candidate will be finding themselves needing to understand these things along the way. So we're not going to teach these as coaches, but you will bring it up from time to time when they're trying to figure out what committees they're serving on and how it all fits in. We took these from Board Source. There's actually 10 at Board Source, but I got to tell you, for me, strategic planning and all that all fits together. So I just made 7.
Okay.
Yeah, so it really is 10, but there's all together in the planning area, one thing. So that is sort of the technical knowledge, and that's what the workshops are on and the articles are on. But the fact is, when it comes right down to it, the coaching, I think, is all about understanding the nonprofit's core values. And this is what I think a couple of you mentioned. It takes a while as everyone comes in to really, you walk in with a strong, clear moral compass, knowing you want to do some great things for the community. But then it really comes down to things like, wait, how do I discern what the core values and key operating principles are? How do I know the priorities? How do I know the lay of the land of this nonprofit? And that's what you're going to have to tease out of your candidate at first. we're going to ask each nonprofit to buddy up the candidate with a numbered member of the committee. If it works, it'll work great. And some nonprofits won't, but hopefully the buddy should help with this as well. And then you want to help the candidates understand where the core values actually collide with the actions that are taken or the things that are being said, because those are areas where I think people serving on committees and boards have to understand where those tension points are and then how to deal with them. And that's those lovely, messy situations. I also think the whole thing about embracing diversity is huge in so many ways. And it really is, when I look at the more people who are different from you, it really helps you identify patterns and solutions and think differently and not have all that rubber stamping thing in your box.
Mhm.
So with your candidates, helping to make sure they embrace diversity of thought in all kinds of ways and be respectfully productive about it. And then the other thing I think is going to be important is you want to balance in your candidates. They have to have a respect for group process. You're talking about committees and governing boards. So there's a lot of due diligence and a lot of deliberation that has to take place, but it can't be so that it just leads to groupthink. You've got to be able to help the candidate figure out how to anticipate change and to dare to think differently. So there's got to be a respect for the past and the group dynamics, but there's also got to be a change agent in there too, I think a lot of times. And
Mhm.
many things that the nonprofits are doing, especially with a newer, younger candidate, rinse and repeat is sort of the boring thing that they keep going on with. But sometimes you really need to be more responsible as an innovator and to change and be a little different and to have the courage to phase out things that no longer work. So I think as we're looking to coach people, these are some of the core things that I think nonprofits are getting stuck with on the committee and board levels.
Yeah.
That's just what I'm seeing as we're looking towards the future of leadership. What I'd like to do is there's 3 wonderful TED Talks on this sort of topic, and they were designed, the first 2 were designed for profits, but there's nonprofit undertones. The third one, Dan Pallotta's, we ran out during our 25th anniversary to the entire county. And I love Dan Pallotta's, what
I do
everybody
too.
thinks about charity is dead wrong.
Yeah.
What I'd like to do is play one today and then ask that you do a refresher on these other 2, or we'll do it at another time. But I mean, they're only about 10 minutes each or so, but I'd like to start with this classic on what it takes to be a great leader, because she's got some great things to say about leadership in changing times, and you are developing leaders of nonprofit boards. So if you're comfortable with that, I'm going to zoom into this TED Talk. We'll take 10 minutes and then we'll have some more conversation before we sign off. All right. So this is an incredible classic. And let's see, I think I might have to unshare my screen and share it again, won't I? It probably makes sense, right? Can you see it on my screen? A TED Talk?
Mhm.
You can't, no,
I-
but they
no, I think
can.
they should
Connie,
be
you
able to.
can't answer.
But they should be able to.
Eric,
for
you can't
sure.
see it, right?
Oh, they
No,
can't.
I cannot see it.
Yeah, do not listen to Connie. I get that.
Sorry.
She's on the wrong screen. No, it's wrong. Okay, now you can see it says TED, right?
Not yet.
Not yet.
There we go.
There we go.
All right, so where the heck did that go to? It says TED Update Browser. That's not what I was going for after all that. Okay, let me get out of here. We'll try again. Sorry about that. I'm just going to cut and paste it into my thing because it was right there. Isn't that silly? How many times do we do this stuff? I'm going to find her and then we'll just share the screen, okay? Sorry about that. Where'd it go? Who's got a dog?
That's me.
Oh, it is. I'm going to get out of the slideshow. It seems to be shutting me down. Oh, is it you or your dog, Hugh? Let's be clear. Okay, here she comes. Now I got to find you guys again. I think I can do this.
I know, it's like.
I'm getting there, folks. Sorry about that.
computer hell.
I would have thought it was pretty tough to lose us.
Yeah, I think it's not. We're not losing it. Now you can see my screen, right? And you can
Mhm.
see this woman pointing on it.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's
Like you
roll.
did it.
Don't be doing that.
That I can provide.
We're going to
having
Walden
one
University now,
deposit
aren't we? How do we get
and
out of
make
Walden?
pricing
We
more
got
convenient.
Just
to-
wait, it's an ad. It,
Sorry. We're just
Don't
gonna
click-
leave
yeah,
Walden
don't click on it.
University.
for everyone in my community.
Okay,
There you
Matt,
go.
there she goes.
It's a great leader today. Many of us carry this image of this all-knowing superhero who stands and commands and protects his followers. But that's kind of an image from another time. And what's also outdated are the leadership development programs that are based on success models for a world that was, not a world that is or that is coming. We conducted a study of 4,000 companies, and we asked them, let's see the effectiveness of your leadership development programs. 58% of the companies cited significant talent gaps for critical leadership roles. That means that despite corporate training programs, offsites, assessments, coaching, all of these things, more than half the companies had failed to grow enough great leaders. You may be asking yourself, is my company helping me to prepare to be a great 21st century leader? The odds are probably not. Now, I've spent 25 years of my professional life observing what makes great leaders. I've worked inside Fortune 500 companies, I've advised over 200 CEOs, and I've cultivated more leadership pipelines than you can imagine. But a few years ago, I noticed a disturbing trend in leadership preparation. I noticed that despite all the efforts, there were familiar stories that kept resurfacing about individuals. One story was about Chris, a high potential superstar leader who moves to a new unit and fails, destroying unrecoverable value. And then there were stories like Sydney, the CEO, who's so frustrated because her company is cited as best company for leaders, but only one of the top 50 leaders is equipped to lead their crucial initiatives. And then there were stories like the senior leadership team of a once thriving business that's surprised by a market shift, finds itself having to force the company to reduce its size in half or go out of business. Now, these recurring stories cause me to ask two questions. Why are the leadership gaps widening when there's so much more investment in leadership development? And what are the great leaders doing distinctly different to thrive and grow? One of the things that I did, I was so consumed by these questions and also frustrated by those stories that I left my job so that I could study this full time. And I took a year to travel to different parts of the world to learn about effective and ineffective leadership practices in companies, countries, and nonprofit organizations. And so I did things like travel to South Africa, where I had an opportunity to understand how Nelson Mandela was ahead of his time in anticipating and navigating his political, social, and economic context. I also met a number of nonprofit leaders who, despite very limited financial resources, were making a huge impact in the world, often bringing together seeming adversaries. And I spent countless hours in presidential libraries trying to understand how the environment had shaped the leaders, the moves that they made, and then the impact of those moves beyond their tenure. And then when I returned to work full time, this role, I joined with wonderful colleagues who were also interested in these questions. Now, from all this, I distilled the characteristics of leaders who are thriving and what they do differently. And then I also distilled the preparation practices that enable people to grow to their potential. I want to share some of this with you now. In a 21st century world, which is more global, digitally enabled and transparent, with faster speeds of information flow and innovation, and where nothing big gets done without some kind of a complex matrix, relying on traditional development practices will stunt your growth as a leader. In fact, traditional assessments like narrow 360 surveys or outdated performance criteria will give you false positives, lulling you into thinking that you are more prepared than you really are. Leadership in the 21st century is defined and evidenced by 3 questions. Where are you looking to anticipate the next change to your business model or your life? The answer to this question is on your calendar. Who are you spending time with? On what topics? Where are you traveling? What are you reading? And then how are you distilling this into understanding potential discontinuities? And then making a decision to do something right now so that you're prepared and ready. There's a leadership team that does practice where they bring together each member collecting, here are trends that impact me, here are trends that impact another team member, and they share these and then make decisions to course correct a strategy or to anticipate a new move. Great leaders are not head down, they see around corners, shaping their future, not just reacting to it. The second question is, what is the diversity measure of your personal and professional stakeholder network? Now, we hear often about good old boy networks, and they're certainly alive and well, many institutions. But to some extent, we all have a network of people that we're comfortable with. So this question is about your capacity to develop relationships with people that are very different than you. And those differences can be biological, physical, functional, political, cultural, socioeconomic. And yet, despite all these differences, they connect with you and they trust you enough to cooperate with you in achieving a shared goal. Great leaders understand that having a more diverse network is a source of pattern identification at greater levels and also of solutions, because you have people that are thinking differently than you are. Third question, are you courageous enough to abandon a practice that has made you successful in the past? There's an expression, go along to get along. But if you follow this advice, chances are as a leader, you're going to keep doing what's familiar and comfortable. Great leaders dare to be different. They don't just talk about risk-taking, they actually do it. And one of the leaders shared with me the fact that the most impactful development comes when you are able to build the emotional stamina to withstand people telling you that your new idea is naive or reckless or just plain stupid. Now, interesting, people who will join you are not in your usual suspects in your network. They're often people that think differently and therefore are willing to join you in taking a courageous leap. And it's a leap, not a step. More than traditional leadership programs, answering these 3 questions will determine your effectiveness as a 21st century leader. What makes a great leader in the 21st century? I've met many and they stand out. They are women and men who are preparing themselves, not for the comfortable predictability of yesterday, but also for the realities of today and all of those unknown possibilities of tomorrow. Thank you.
That's I love that.
Darn. Pretty good, huh?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I think it is too. So, thoughts, reactions? That's a good one. And
I think one of the more challenging parts for me will be abandoning the past. Being an older person on the board, it's a matter of how do you step forward. And I really, I mentioned before, I have some children. I have 5, and it's interesting to teach them to step out and do something different and what they're not comfortable with. And I really have seen that in every one of my kids. They've been able to kind of step out, and some have been, just wonderful people as to how they serve the communities that they all live in. And it's interesting how that came out in the talk. I really hit home with me.
Yeah. And I think the layer I added onto her talk, and it came out earlier this week when we were talking to the other group, is that abandoning what doesn't work about the past and having the courage to stand up for that is important. But first, you have to prove that you actually honor the group and its history and the dynamics. You can't just walk in and change things, because that would just be way too brash. But so understanding the core values first, starting to be aware over time of divergencies, and then trying to get your diverse viewpoints together with different people, and then using group process to help it, may be the way on a lot of committees and boards to help activate that, rather than just being the one new person who just comes in and says, let's do things differently because I'm younger and newer. So it's a navigation process that I think is a balance of wisdom, experience, and daring to look around the corner.
I sometimes think of it as the what if. What if we looked at it from a different perspective? What if we were trying to make a change in the way that we're raising money? What if we were to change that? What would that look like? What would be some of the things we need to think about? What would be some of the things we need to change? But rather than, present it, get the group to think about the ramifications of the what if, so everybody has a buy-in.
So how we can get our committee members who are going to be board leaders to start to do that on the committees that they're serving on, as opposed to just buying into the status quo if it's not working for the organization.
Right.
That's the coaching role. Other thoughts?
I think another piece related to that, related to what we're talking about, is encouraging people, because what I hear a lot of times is someone new will join a board and they'll be very frustrated right away that people aren't accepting their suggestions, or it's the same old, because they come into this all excited, I'm going to make change, or I'm going to do something very cool, or maybe they have no real sense what this is going to be. And then they get frustrated with well, that's not how we do it. That doesn't work, blah, blah, blah. So I think here it's about helping them to understand that it's a process.
And how to position it,
Right.
How to discern what's going on.
Yeah.
How to build the coalition to help it. Yeah.
And to not be frustrated that maybe it takes some time. That doesn't mean they're not interested in what you're saying. It just means you've got to do some of these other steps first in respecting the past and helping people to understand, I'm honoring this. And what about, as Corrine said, what about if we did this a little differently, or because I think that's often what frustrates people, and what some of the reasons people leave boards after short periods of time, because they feel they're not contributing.
Because the organization is kind of stuck. Yeah.
Sometimes people bring a very corporate perspective as a board member to a nonprofit board that probably runs in a not very not professional, but not a business-like way. So there's always that kind of tension that you have to address and balance.
So we know that the business practices work well in nonprofits, but how do we layer them with respect for the nonprofit stuff so the message doesn't come across as arrogant business, so that people can understand it and take it in?
It's a cultural thing.
That's something Lou's always saying to them. You've got to think like a business. You got to think like a business, right, Lou?
You think like a socially conscious business. Lou, you need to unmute yourself, Lou. Mm.
Uh,
There you
Yeah,
go, Dr. Beccaria.
I think those previous 2 or 3 points are really, really important. But I think whoever is, whoever is like leading the committee or leading the board needs to, how can I put this? It has to engender a culture. I'm a big believer in corporate culture.
Yeah,
And I think that the leaders, when you've got new people coming in to serve on the committee or serve on the board, they need to, it's the responsibility of whoever's the chairperson, I think, to make it known to them that we have a culture here that is accepting, that we want you to feel comfortable in this culture, and that you were brought onto the committee or the board because you have something of value to contribute.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if I'm making myself really clear, but corporate culture, I think, is extremely important in the conduct of boards and committees, so that people do feel accepted and that they feel confident enough to raise questions, offer ideas, that they don't feel that there's a culture that's dominated by such a strong ego of a leader that it diminishes the ability of people to bring forth their ideas.
so our role as coaches will be to get that candidate to understand that importance and understand how to figure out what the culture is, and then how to navigate it and then communicate with the people who are creating that culture, especially if it's not a healthy one. And the fact is, we're hoping to put the candidates into fairly healthy nonprofits for the first round.
Thank
They're
you.
experienced, they want good experiences first before they get to messy ones. They have stated that already, because some of them have had other people who have served on committees and boards and have friends who have had bad experiences and jumped off. So like, I need to start with a healthy model, so that I can learn over time and then get stronger and more experience, and then maybe be able to help some of the dysfunctional ones. So we're not sending in a consulting team. We're sending in new recruits to serve on committees and serve on boards fairly soon after they do a little dating on committees. So it is 5:28, and I know Les has a 5:30 meeting. Yes, he's over there already, Joanna. You're doing sign language from the dentist's office. Thank you very much. So that's what we wanted to get through today. The handout, Hugh will send it to you, plus it's available on our website. We have about 22 candidates or so, 30 applicants, but 22 candidates for board service. And I think we have maybe 18 to 20 coaches. So I think we might be fairly close.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, isn't that great? If you have
Yeah.
other candidates and other coaches, send them Hugh's way, because we know this is going to keep growing and growing. We hope to match each of you up with one candidate to start, and we'll run their names by you first. We'll send you these lovely little forms to fill out so that you're more ready. And then we'll run the names by you before we send you the paperwork on the candidates, just to make sure that it's the right fit. Okay. Interesting, eh?
Okay.
Any other questions for today?
Karen, I have one suggestion.
Yes, sir,
And
Mr.
that
Reed.
is that if there was a good way of coming up with a cheat sheet on what resources were available to us, so that as we're, oh, I see this internet is unstable.
Oh, you got your unstable 5.4, don't you?
Yeah, okay.
So Bob, we have it on the website. The
I-
cheat sheet is our website, and it's got the resources right there.
Yeah,
I can, and Bob, I can
I've
send
been-
you the link to the
I-
information on our website.
I've been to the website. It's endless. Just
Yeah.
take the last coaches, the last directors meeting training program. You've got great videos. The problem is if I'm sitting there with the candidate at one particular moment, I can't scroll through the website to find the program that I want. If I had one cheat sheet that I could sit there and say, oh yeah, there is a program, there is a video on this on the website. Here's the program you need to look for. I think it would do an awful lot. In addition to that, some of these TED Talks are, as we all know, are absolutely fantastic. This one was a good one. I've done hours and hours and hours on TED Talks. I haven't seen that one. How many good ones do you think you have that we should potentially be able to reference on a little bit of a cheat sheet and say, hey, these are the TED Talks that we might think are appropriate or the best with regards to being directors in nonprofit organizations? I think you get my point. The website is absolutely great.
No, we're gonna have to make sure the website, it's got class A, and then, yeah, there's gonna have to be levels.
Maybe.
Yeah, we'll have to do the levels because it's all gotta be online, because it's the only way we're gonna be able to keep it flexible, and the important stuff will be at the top, and then the supplementary stuff will be drop downs or something.
But
'Cause, yeah.
again, if it's at the top, it's gonna have to be brief enough that as we're sitting there with the candidates, we can scroll through it quickly and say, this is the one we think you ought to be.
Yep, it's a link. There's going to be links. Yeah, yeah. And part of it is also, I think, okay, that's a good question. We don't have the answer right away, but we'll be able to send you some resources and then come back. And sometimes we're going to have to look for resources. Then we'll load them on the website. Plus you can send them to the candidate. Plus, again, feeding it back into topics so that we can do them on the alternate Mondays in the roundtables and the workshops. So yeah, there's a lot of information, that's for sure. Yeah. But I would love to go through the website with you for the GetOnBoard resources and see what you think is most important. That may help us rank some things a little bit better. Yeah. Good. Anything
Karen,
else?
You mentioned that part of our service as coaches, if you will, would be to periodically tune in onto those Monday meetings and all. Is there any way that you can, or do you plan on giving us notice of those so that we can know when they're going to be held?
Yeah, we send them to you already on social media, but they're every other Monday.
When you
And
say
we're gonna
on social media, what do you mean by that?
email. We email it out to you, but
Okay.
you probably have a block on it.
No, okay,
so-
there might be a spam, something going.
We'll have to
on.
unblock your spam filter, and there's a calendar on it, but we're gonna turn it into I think it's gonna be like the second and third Monday of every month,
Okay,
or that we're gonna do the second and fourth Monday. We have holidays get in the way a little bit.
right.
Yeah,
that
so
could be
we'll
helpful to-
resend it. Q will get them out to all the coaches, so you know, and we took a little break in December because it's so darn busy. So,
Okay.
And I
yeah.
think I can send you a link. I just need to check with Jameson that with one click, you can RSVP to all the sessions or to multiple sessions, just so that you have them on your calendar, so that when you can attend, all you have to do is just click on that link and boom, you're
Let's do that, Q.
in. So I'll work
We'll
with
do that
Jameson
for all
on
the
that.
coaches.
Yeah,
And you get one link for all the workshops, which have a topic associated with them. And then you get a second link for all the roundtables, which are more open discussion. So, and once you accept it, it'll just pop up on your calendar, and if you can attend. Okay. And
Okay.
yeah, that'd be great. Anything else for the good of the order? Thank you very much for your time today
thank you.
and for
Thanks,
all you're
gentlemen.
going to do. And
Thank you,
Joanne,
Karen. This was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we'll
thanks a lot,
send it
Karen.
to you, and you're gonna be this is gonna be so fun. I can't wait to see all
I
these
know,
folks out there doing great
absolutely.
things. So, yeah, you're gonna get them. Thank you so much. Keep
Thanks.
healthy. Feel better, Joanne. Talking a little more tomorrow. I've never heard you so quiet. Bob Rigg, I'm gonna call you soon to go over the website because I want to fix it up, and then we'll see if we got a little bit better for you. And Lou Tita, you came in late, so if you want to stay on for a minute, we'll answer some more questions, okay? If you haven't